name is Jennie Smith, and I'm the author of Valley of Forgetting: Alzheimer's Families and the Search for a Cure. This is a very readable and very engaging science narrative that gives readers a kind of worm's eye view of clinical research in Latin America, both from the side of the subjects of that research and from the researchers. I spent 7 years researching and writing it, most of the time in Medellin, Colombia. The book tells the story of a 40-year effort to understand the genetics and natural history of early onset Alzheimer's disease in a giant extended family that carries a specific genetic mutation that gives them Alzheimer's in like their 40s. And it tells the story of a major clinical trial in this population by US investigators working with a Swiss drug company. The book really explores deeply what it's like to be studied over time. It follows multiple generations of families that have participated in these studies and their attitudes toward the science and toward the researchers. The New Yorker magazine did a little capsule review of the book that I thought was very nice. And it said that, I'm paraphrasing here, but it renders flat questions of medical research ethics into rich dimension. And I think that's true. And I think the book would be very useful and illustrative for a course on medical or clinical research ethics, or for students of neurology or neuropsychology, any neuroscience, nursing students, people studying health policy, caregiving, and that sort of thing. So just to list some of the issues that this book explores, one of the central dramas is an 8-year clinical trial of an Alzheimer's drug in hundreds of people, most of them pretty poor. These were people who were still healthy, and the trial was to see if the drug could keep them from becoming sick. So for 8 years, they couldn't get pregnant, they couldn't smoke pot, they had to take all these invasive tests. But here's the thing, not all of them were carriers of the mutation. They would never have gotten sick in the first place. People in this study cohort were not given the option to know whether they carried the mutation or not. The study subjects were also not paid because nobody wants to tempt vulnerable people in a developing country to join a drug trial, and that's understandable. But the Colombian researchers themselves were paid very handsomely. So the book looks at that dynamic. It looks in depth at what is fairly owed to participants in clinical research, especially when that research is being conducted in developing countries. And it also reveals some of the misunderstandings that can emerge when you have a long-time relationship between researchers and subjects. What if, research is the only type of medical care your family has access to or can get access to? If you're studying people while you care for them, are your decisions going to benefit them or your research? Another question that comes up in the book is, who has the right to data from a country like Colombia? These patients, their families donated blood and brains for 40 years. So, who has the right to tissues and genetic data? And in this book, interestingly, it's not just the patients who can be vulnerable to exploitation by outside forces, but some of the Colombian researchers as well. All the money for what they're doing comes from the US and Europe, but who owns the knowledge that they're producing? Who should have access to it? So this is just a small sample of many lively discussions that this book can generate in a class. And I think students will find that there are very few easy answers because research is complicated and life is complicated, and both even more so in a place like Colombia. So thanks for listening, and I hope you'll take a look at the book.